Is it possible to rekindle lost love through the most unimaginable means? Imagine a love story so intense that it defies reality, a tale that crosses the boundaries of the living and the supernatural. Tonight, I'm about to tell you a story so chilling that it will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, betrayal, and the mysterious creatures that may just be walking among us. This is the story of a couple once deeply in love, torn apart by misunderstandings and the harsh realities of life. But fate, with a twist darker than anyone could have expected, brought them back together. And no, it wasn't just their hearts yearning for one another. It was something much more sinister, something otherworldly. Mika and Raphael were high school sweethearts. They shared a bond so strong that nothing seemed capable of breaking them apart. But as time went on, the pressures of life, misunderstandings, and secrets began to chip away at their once unbreakable connection. Soon, they found themselves separated, each walking their own path, heartbroken and lost. But there was something Mika didn't know, something she couldn't even begin to understand. Raphael had turned to something, or rather someone, to try and fix the shattered pieces of his life. He sought the help of an old family friend, a healer known for her strange, even feared powers. It was said that she had connections to beings who could alter fate, bring back lost love, and grant wishes, at a price. When Mika began to experience strange, unexplainable events, she thought it was just her grief playing tricks on her. Shadows in the corners of her room, whispers in the wind, a feeling of being watched. But then came the nightmares. Terrifying, vivid dreams of creatures lurking in the dark, faces twisted with hunger, all of them calling her name. It was only after a terrifying encounter one night, where she barely escaped with her life, that she realized the truth. Raphael hadn't just sought the help of a healer, he had made a deal with the Aswang, and with that, everything changed. As Raphael and Mika's paths unexpectedly crossed again, it became clear that their reunion wasn't just fate. It was something darker, something the Aswang had carefully orchestrated. But now both of them were in danger, tangled in a web of supernatural forces they could never have imagined. Could they survive what they had brought upon themselves? Would their love truly be rekindled, or was this the beginning of their destruction? As they found themselves drawn deeper into a world of ancient creatures, blood oaths, and twisted bargains, one question lingered in their minds. Is love worth any price? And if you make a deal with the devil, can you ever really escape? Stay tuned for the next part of this true and terrifying story, where the line between love and evil blurs in ways you won't believe. Mika couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Ever since she ran into Raphael again, strange things had been happening. The air around her felt heavier, like unseen eyes were always watching. At night, the shadows in her room seemed to stretch and move on their own, and the whispers, soft, chilling voices, never seemed to fade, no matter how hard she tried to ignore them. She wanted to believe that seeing Raphael again was fate. After all, she had never really moved on. A part of her still longed for him, still remembered the way he used to hold her, the way he would promise that no matter what, they would always find their way back to each other. And yet, something about him felt different. His eyes, once warm and full of life, now held a darkness she couldn't explain. He looked tired, almost haunted, as if he had seen things no ordinary person should ever witness. The night they met again, Raphael had barely spoken. He only asked how she had been, if she was happy. There was something strange about his voice, like he was afraid to say too much. And then, just as quickly as he appeared, he left. But the very next night, Mika began to hear footsteps outside her house, slow and deliberate, stopping just beneath her window. When she peered through the curtains, there was nothing there, only the rustling of trees swaying in the wind. Days passed, and the encounters grew stranger. She would wake up with scratches on her arms, her dreams filled with eerie figures standing over her, whispering in a language she didn't understand. Once she swore she saw Raphael standing at the end of the street, watching her, but when she blinked, he was gone. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that Raphael's return was not just a coincidence. He had come back, yes, but he had brought something with him. Determined to find answers, Mika sought out an elder in their town, someone known for understanding the unseen. The old woman's face darkened the moment Mika mentioned Raphael's name. "You should stay away from him," she warned. "He made a choice, and now he is bound to them." Mika's heart pounded. "To who?" The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "The Aswang." A cold shiver ran down Mika's spine. The nightmares, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. It all made sense now. Raphael hadn't just changed. He had become a part of something dark. And whether she liked it or not, she was already being pulled into it. Mika's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to believe that the elder was just trying to scare her. But deep down, she knew the truth had already started to unravel. The Raphael she once knew, the boy she loved, was no longer the same. And if the Aswang had a hold on him, she had to find out why. That night, she decided to confront him. She went to the place where they used to meet, a quiet spot by the river where they had spent countless evenings talking about their dreams. But when she arrived, the air felt wrong, thick with something unseen, something waiting. She heard a rustling behind her, and when she turned, Raphael was there. "Mika, you shouldn't have come," he said, his voice low, almost desperate. She stepped closer, searching his face for answers. "Tell me the truth, Raphael. What's happening to you?" He hesitated, his eyes darting toward the darkened trees behind them. "I tried to fix things," he finally said. "I wanted us to be together again. But I made a mistake." A cold wind swept through the trees, carrying with it the faintest sound of someone whispering. Mika's skin prickled. "What kind of mistake?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Before he could answer, a shadow moved behind him. It wasn't human. The outline was twisted, unnatural, its limbs too long, its breath too heavy. Mika's heart pounded as she realized the truth. The Aswang weren't just watching, they were here, and they weren't going to let Raphael go. Mika's body went rigid as the shadow shifted behind Raphael. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The air around them felt heavy, pressing against her chest like unseen hands trying to hold her in place. Raphael turned slightly, his eyes filled with something between fear and acceptance. "They don't want to let me go," he murmured, barely loud enough for Mika to hear. "I made a deal, Mika, and now they're here to collect." The whispering grew louder, surrounding them like a chorus of voices just beyond the veil of reality. The trees swayed violently, even though there was no wind. From the shadows, a pair of glowing red eyes emerged, staring straight at Mika. A deep, guttural growl followed, a sound so unnatural it sent chills down her spine. Raphael suddenly grabbed her wrist, his grip desperate. "You have to leave," he pleaded, before they— But it was too late. The figure in the darkness moved forward, stepping into the faint light of the moon. Its face was almost human but distorted, its mouth stretched into an unnatural grin, its sharp teeth glistening. It was an Aswang, but unlike any Mika had ever heard of. It didn't lunge or attack. Instead, it watched her, as if waiting. Then, in a voice that sent ice through her veins, it spoke. "She belongs to us now, too." Mika's breath caught. The shadows around her shifted, more figures emerging, their hollow eyes locked onto her. The truth hit her like a crashing wave. This wasn't just about Raphael anymore. They had been waiting for her, and now there was no turning back. Mika's heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from her chest. The Aswang's words echoed in her mind. "She belongs to us now too." It didn't make sense. She had never made any deals, never sought out the creatures hiding in the dark. So why were they claiming her? Raphael's grip on her wrist tightened. No, he said, shaking his head in defiance. That wasn't part of the deal. His voice wavered, but there was a fire in his eyes, a desperate determination. Take me, let her go. The Aswang let out a low, guttural chuckle. The others joined in, their laughter blending with the rustling trees, making the night feel even colder. Foolish boy, the leader sneered. You thought you could decide the terms. It took a slow step forward, its movements eerily smooth. You asked to bring her back to you. You begged for fate to intervene. Its grin widened. And fate has spoken. Mika's body tensed. The realization hit her like a crashing wave. Raphael hadn't just made a deal for himself, he had unknowingly tied her to it as well. The Aswang had answered his plea, but not in the way he had hoped. They had brought her back, yes, but not just to be with him. They had claimed her. No, she whispered, her throat dry. I never agreed to this. The Aswang tilted its head, amused. And yet, here you are. Suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. The air grew thick, suffocating. Shadows stretched unnaturally, reaching for them. Mika yanked her hand free from Raphael's grasp, her instinct screaming at her to run. But before she could move, something cold brushed against her neck. Fingers, long and clawed. A sharp whisper slithered into her ear. You were always meant to be one of us. Terror flooded through her veins. She turned, but no one was there. Yet she could feel them, inside her mind, creeping through her soul. Raphael grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. Mika, listen to me. We can fight this. You're stronger than them. But deep down, she wasn't sure. The whispers, the nightmares, the way the darkness seemed to welcome her. It was as if a part of her had always belonged to them. And now they were here to claim what was theirs. Mika's pulse roared in her ears as the shadows tightened around her. The Aswang circled them, their red eyes glowing with hunger, their whispers pressing into her mind like invisible chains. Raphael stood in front of her, his body tense, shielding her as if he could fight off creatures that were no longer just lurking in the dark, but were a part of him now, a part of them. She had to think, had to act. The realization struck her like lightning. If Raphael's plea had brought her into this, then maybe she could undo it. Mika clenched her fists, forcing herself to push past the fear. You said he made a deal, she said, her voice steady despite the trembling inside her. But deals can be broken. The leader swung grinned, baring razor-sharp teeth. Not this one. Mika took a deep breath. Then take me instead. Raphael whipped around, his eyes wide. No, Mika, you don't understand. But she did. If she was already bound to them, then she had one last chance to take control. She stepped forward, closer to the leader, feeling the cold pull of the darkness tightening around her. Let him go, she said, her voice firmer this time. I will stay, but only if you release him. The Aswang watched her, amused. You think you have the power to bargain with us? Mika swallowed hard. You wanted me, didn't you? Then let him go, or I'll make sure none of us get what we want. For the first time, silence fell over the creatures. They exchanged unreadable glances, as if weighing their options. Then the leader let out a low, approving laugh. Very well, it said. The boy is free. Raphael's breath hitched. Mika, don't... But before he could stop her, the shadows surged forward. They wrapped around Mika like a living thing, pulling her into the abyss. Raphael lunged for her, his fingers barely grazing hers before she was yanked away. The last thing she saw was his face, his desperate, broken expression, before darkness swallowed her whole. Silence. Then, a voice. Not from the Aswang, not from Raphael, from deep within herself. You were never theirs to claim. A sudden force erupted from within Mika, a warmth she hadn't known existed. The darkness recoiled, the Aswang screeching in pain. Light, blinding, pure, burst from her chest, burning through the shadows. And then, everything was gone. When Mika opened her eyes, she was standing alone. The forest was still, the night quiet, and Raphael was nowhere to be seen. Mika stood frozen, her breath shaky in the silence that followed. The forest, once filled with whispers and unseen horrors, now felt eerily still. The Aswang were gone, the darkness had retreated, but so had Raphael. Her chest ached as she turned in slow circles, searching for him, calling his name. Only the rustling leaves answered her. Had he escaped? Had they taken him after all? The thought sent a sharp pain through her heart. She had fought, she had won, hadn't she? But if she had, why did it feel like she had lost? A cold breeze brushed against her skin, carrying something faint. A voice, distant yet familiar. Mika? It was Raphael, but he wasn't there. She closed her eyes, listening harder. The wind curled around her like a whispering secret. And then she understood. The Aswang had released him, just as they had promised. But Raphael had been bound to them for too long. Even without the creatures hunting him, he was different now. Changed. He could never return to the life he had before. Tears welled in Mika's eyes, but she forced herself to stay strong. She had to believe that somewhere, somehow, Raphael was safe. That he was free in a way he had never been before. The moon hung high in the sky as she took her first step away from the nightmare that had nearly claimed her. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had survived. The Aswang had tried to take her, had tried to make her one of them, but something inside her had fought back. Something stronger. As she walked through the quiet night, she realized the truth. This wasn't just about Raphael's mistake or the Aswang's curse, it was about choices. The ones they made, the ones they had to live with, and the ones that could never be undone. Mika didn't know if she would ever see Raphael again. Maybe he was out there, watching, waiting for the day they could truly be together. Or maybe he was just another ghost in the past, a shadow in the wind. Either way, she had to keep moving forward. Because whatever darkness had tried to claim her, she had proven one thing: she belonged to herself.